So,
go ahead.
Okay.
All right. 3, 2. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm meteorologist Katie Garner.
Hey, and I'm meteorologist Mark Collins.
And I'll tell you what, Mark, we have been together all morning. Really, we're going to get into more of what you experienced in your childhood home in Tampa. But we do want to tell you guys, we have, per the 905 advisory, a Category 4 hurricane.
Yeah, and this continues to rapidly intensify here through the morning. The latest advisory at 9 o'clock brings it all the way up to 4 strength. Notice those winds, 150 mile per hour sustained winds. To jump one more category, it just takes like riding a bicycle speed, 5 miles per hour. Once it reaches 156, you've got a Cat 5. So it doesn't take much more wind, and I'm sure they're going to find that as they've got missions in the storm with the hurricane hunters. The downside is that it is moving towards West Florida, and it's pretty much baked in a landfall there Wednesday night into Thursday morning.
It's exactly what they don't need. I feel like the pressure dropped significantly from when I came on the air at 4:30 all the way to this point. We've seen it really come up a couple of categories. So you've got the low pressure, you've got the slow speed, which adds strength, and then the warm waters along with other factors that are fueling this storm.
And take a look at the track is moving right towards the Tampa Bay area. Is there any gray area? Well, probably not, because a cold front is coming in. So the only gray areas, is it Tampa Bay or is it further south towards Manatee County, Sarasota counties? If it does slide south of the Tampa Bay area, that will minimize the storm surge into Pinellas County, Pasco County, and Hernando County. Those are the areas that have been hardest hit by Helene. All of the barrier islands have been under 3 feet of water. Now, if this storm goes south of Tampa Bay, that would spare them, but that puts the risk into Manatee counties, Sarasota counties, where that onshore wind and the storm surge will reach 9 to 12 feet. That's the forecast now, 9 to 12 foot storm surge. Clearwater Beach just had a 9.5 foot surge from Helene as that moved parallel to the coast. This is moving perpendicular. A direct hit is possible here along the Sun Coast area of Florida. I know that area very well. That's my hometown. I grew up there.
He was just there. And when we were texting back and forth, I was like, how's your dad? How's the house? What you were sending, just what I saw from the phone, it makes you want to cry.
It's complete devastation in a way that is not particularly captivating. And what do I mean by that? The trees are still standing. The roofs are still on the homes. But it is almost like the homes inverted themselves. It's like they just threw up all of the internal furniture. The flooring has been ripped up. The appliances are all curbside. When you drive down the streets, whether or not it's Treasure Island, my hometown, Madeira Beach, Reddington Beach, Indian Rocks Beach, you drive and you see the personal artifacts of each and every home outside on the yard. The goal was to get everything out. Everything that was destroyed needs to go curbside. Everything that was wet needed to come out. It is a convoy of home restoration companies there trying to mitigate, and this was all done over the past 7 days before it was really baked in that Milton is coming in for the second punch.
So you had a little bit of hope. You thought maybe we could get, but this is what struck me, like when it was you that went back, you know, you think you see all this devastation, right? We see video and you think, oh gosh, those poor people. But when we could humanize it to you, you think a lot of these people, that's where you brought your first child home. That was the first house you could afford, maybe the second home that you saved forever for, and it's just gone.
It's just gone.
It's just gone.
And unfortunately for a lot of people, they don't have flood insurance, home insurance, because these are people that have moved in there. Like we've had this place for 43 years.
Right.
And you could get in on a home without a lot of cost back then. Now these homes are $1 million plus. But for some folks, you know, they don't have the money for a $10,000 flood premium each year.
Not even knowing, by the way, if it's going to cover it. Because I know I was covering Hurricane Ian or Nicole, one of them. And anyway, it wiped out these houses, and the insurance company said, sorry, it came from the ocean that way. We're not covering it. It was not an event. event that we would cover, and they pay thousands a month.
So the difference with Helene is that was a flood storm. Like I said, all the roofs, it almost looks normal. In contrast to what we saw with Ian, Hurricane Ian in Fort Myers, it was complete devastation. Homes were dismantled off their foundation. The debris was thrown into mangroves across intercoastal waterways. I have a very macabre feeling that that's what we're going to see here with Milton, only it's going to be even worse because all of the debris is piled up outside the home. So what you're going to see is shrapnel getting thrown all over the place.
All over the place, because the pile that you had was huge.
I piled up in just 3 days a 8-foot tall pile that stretched about 100 feet across the house. It was everything from furniture to appliances to flooring to drywall. I wanted that house dry, so I got on it, and within 3 days, before people were even allowed back on the island, I had it out, and then you see the construction crews come out, and it's just convoys of teams ripping out the guts of homes.
And it's going to happen for
it was
months.
Probably
years.
all done in vain because this storm, if it does hit the Tampa Bay area, will be the strongest hurricane to ever impact that area. You have to go back to 1921, the Anclote Key, Tarpon Springs hurricane. No one is alive that experienced that, but that was the strongest hurricane to ever hit Pinellas County. So this path is aimed towards the Suncoast area, west central Florida. Right now, the forecast is for the storm to come in close to the Tampa Bay area.
Look at that rain for us.
This is us.
This is Jacksonville. So you imagine Tampa, you imagine Sarasota, you imagine areas around there, Treasure Island.
Right.
Because one thing about this storm, so people ask, like, what's the difference between this and Helene? This is more compact. So it doesn't mean that it's smaller in the sense it won't hurt as much. It actually could be worse because not only is it a water event, it's a wind event. Helene was one of the two, and it was still bad.
And the biggest takeaway from Helene, impacts extend way beyond the cone.
Yes.
So most of the Tampa Bay area at one point was not in the cone. As that storm passed by as a Category 3, intensifying to a 4, none of Tampa Bay was in the cone, but since it moved parallel to the coastline, it was like a boat wake of surge all up and down the coast as that moved parallel to shore. This is going to move perpendicular to, so it's going to be a very different beast, more of a wind cyclone coming through.
Well, and that surge, I mean, looking at that at my desk, you know, the National Hurricane Center says over 10 inches could be projected based on where this makes landfall, and we're running out of time on to where, but the storm will tell us. I mean, it's going to tell us eventually where, but because it is so compact, the strength and the speed can change quickly, and then so can the track. But we've seen consistencies throughout the day today with that track. However, when you look at storm surge, some spots I looked at today, 15 feet plus locally, that's life-threatening, and people, they've got to take it seriously when they're told to evacuate. And I know I sound like a broken record, and you're like, all right, don't tell us what to do, and we wouldn't, but we really are serious when it comes to that.
I think having 2 major storms within a week apart is going to force a lot of people to evacuate. They're seeing the destruction, but they're going to be forced to evacuate because they don't have anything to live in. So those folks that are living along the barrier islands of west central Florida, those homes are not habitable. So if anything, the silver lining is that people that would be diehards and say, hey, I'm not evacuating, they're not going to be there anyways.
They won't be able to. I saw this video, I can't remember where, but it was an accurate video. It came out of Asheville because we know they got hit too. This family was in their house up to here with the rain, sitting on a wet couch, sitting on a refrigerator that was floating. You don't know what's in that water. You don't know what's on. They were terrified, and they said, we're here night and day. We can't go anywhere. I mean, that's horrific.
Yes, and that's the thing, the indirect causes of storm deaths. Just going outside with power lines that are charged. You don't know what you're stepping on. You could get cut. There's no first responders in these situations.
No, there's not.
So if you are cut by something and bleed out, there's no one really to help you. Not to mention going through something that you've never gone through. The howling sounds. The one harrowing story of my neighbor at 10:30 at night, he didn't realize that there was a limit to the surge. My dad, at least, he rode out the storm, but he knew it wasn't going to get much higher than 3 feet.
Right.
The neighbor thought it could be a Katrina situation where the mattress is pushed to the ceiling. So he was panicked. He fled, went out in the street, water rushing down the street. He couldn't get into any of the 2-story homes that were nearby. He was in a single store. The reason why he couldn't get in, people don't think that outswing doors do not open with the force of water.
Do not open.
So there was a ladder nearby. He climbed up into a 2nd story, got into my neighbor's across the street's home, carrying his cat, and his son was with him, and he survived the storm. But those are situations that you don't want to get into, especially now with so much debris piled up on the streets. All that's going to be flying around like shrapnel in the sky, and this could be another nighttime landfalling storm.
He will never forget that.
Never forget that.
And his son will never forget that.
Yep.
And so when they tell you evacuate, you got to evacuate. I mean, you even said it was hard to find gas. It was hard to find food. It's hard to find anything. And this was yesterday.
So Tampa Bay area is shutting down. Yesterday, I was trying to fortify what's left of my dad's house, and Home Depot was a steady stream of plywood on the orange carts headed out. Everyone's boarding up. The gas stations had yellow bags over all of the gas stations.
When you were on empty, you said.
I was on empty, and I was trying to make the evacuation up here, and it took an hour just to find gas stations. The one, Wawa, I give credit to them, they had pumps working.
When you said that, I was like, good.
But there were lines out to the street.
Yeah.
So it was like a 1970s gas crisis here in our area. I did fill up as many jerry cans as I could because the storm is going to come into the port of Tampa. That's Florida's major gas depot. It supplies all the gas stations along Central Florida, South Florida. If that port is wiped out, the gas stations will be wiped out. So keep that in mind. They can bring in gas in here to the port of Jacksonville, so that might kind of relieve some of the pressure in North Florida. But even though we might not suffer a direct hit, you want to fill up as much gas cans as you can in case there is a gas run there.
Well, I mean, and so you look at these models. I mean, look, it really is pretty evident where this could particularly go, and it's just for us up here with 7 inches of rain. 7 inches. You look at areas like San Marco, Avondale, whatnot. They flood on a good day with a sprinkle.
And typically we'd be on the dry side, the left side of the storm. But in our case, this is a wedge, a northeasterly wedge situation that's very wet. So we're not going to catch a break. We could see some of the highest rain totals here along the East Coast in our neck of the woods because we're going to be primed with this northeasterly wind, and that's also going to back the water levels up in the St. Johns River as much as 3, possibly 6 feet. Nailing down storm surge is one of the trickiest things to do because just subtle track variations can alter the amount of surge. For instance, with Helene, which was a track that was baked in, the intensity was pretty baked in, the storm surge was off by 1.5 feet. So it was actually 9.5, and the top estimates were 5 to 8 feet.
And that's life-threatening when you think about that difference. I mean, people expect one thing, which is still bad. But
it's life-threatening because most ceilings on homes are 8 feet.
They are,
so if you're pushing 9 feet, that could trap a lot of people there.
Well, one thing I want to make a mention of is, people today have said, where's the rain coming from, whatnot. There's a disorganized area of low pressure ahead of Milton out here on the satellite. And then we have Milton back here. That's why we're wet today. That's why we're going to be a little wet tomorrow. But we're also going to see the bands of Milton start to come in eventually. And then Wednesday's the day. Wednesday's the day of impact. But that water in the ground, these trees could uproot, power lines come down. I mean, it seems obvious, right? But you got to tell people, because I know in my neighborhood, we have huge trees around people's bedrooms and houses. You got to make arrangements.
Right.
You got to sleep where you sleep.
So the arrangements to make is you don't rush the roads. That is a problem with jamming up the interstates. You don't have to go 200 miles on the interstate. You hide from the wind, you run from the water. So if you're on the coastal communities, you jam the road to get off, but you're only going 10, 15 miles inland. You're not rushing to get to the Panhandle, Tallahassee. Yes, that's going to be a very dry place, but you want to get off the water away from the storm surge.
Right.
You want to hide from the wind. So if you are inland and you've got a bunch of pine trees, just look at the video. You see those pines snap like matchsticks. Those will snap very quick. Big oaks around your home, that's a concern because the root balls tip out. So you have a heavy limb coming down that could crush your house. So if you've got a lot of trees, it's going to be a wind event for us. And like you said, we've had a lot of rain. So the ground is saturated. Those roots have nothing to latch onto.
It's not going to take much.
They're going to gonna be like wet sails, and those sails are gonna catch all the wind, and they're gonna come down. The problem too is you were talking about that weak low coming through.
Yeah.
There's been steady rain over Florida, so for folks working with power tools, everything's gonna be wet. Ladders are gonna be wet. Tarping your windows, that's gonna be difficult. Plywood's gonna be soggy. What I've just experienced, I don't think sandbags are worth the effort.
You were telling me that. They're just not worth it.
And we know that Duval County doesn't issue sandbags because they say if they're installed improperly, it can cause more damage. This is what I've experienced. The people that bagged their homes, sandbags didn't help. We're looking at 3 feet of water. That's not a big storm surge for a major hurricane. You're talking 9 to 12 feet. You tell me, are you going to bag a 1 foot, 9 foot? That's 9 sandbags that you're bagging right there. Now do that for your whole garage. You got to fortify your garage. Now do that for every doorway. Do that for every patio doorway. You don't have a work crew that can fill that many sandbags. Even if they were all filled for you, just lugging those sandbags to pile up something that's 5 feet, good luck.
And they may not even stay. They may falter. I mean, you don't know. And
that's what they're saying. If they're not installed correctly with the correct pyramid base structure, they're not going to hold water.
No.
I took video. We'll see if it works because I know my house is going to get flooded for the second time. I went out and bought expandable polyurethane foam. I jammed all the doors with that, inside, outside, double sealed it. We'll see if that holds the water out. It would be interesting. I've never heard anyone doing that, but I was thinking, how could I stop the water? My neighbor used Gorilla Tape. He taped up his doors. That did not work. It worked 50% of the doors. So it's not a guarantee to use the heavy adhesive. After a while, the adhesive wore off. But another problem, all these solutions that we've just posed, the garages are usually an exterior facing wall with drywall, and once the water sits, that drywall washes out, and if you've got enough force of water, it's going to punch a hole right through your drywall. So there are entry points into your home that you don't even know about.
You don't even know about? You were saying that earlier. We talked about that before we came. You don't even know every way you can get in. Every crack, everything can be such a thing. And now you're dealing with this in your childhood home. You were saying to me and Amanda too that you had to throw your yearbooks on the curb. You had to throw all the memories and everything. And I know, this is good to bring to you all though, because we tell you this because it's real life. This is what's happening.
So many photos were being dried out. My grandfather's World War II love letters to his wife from the foxholes of Germany. We found those completely submerged. They're all drying out. This was my father's sentimental things that he didn't have elevated. So all of my stuff is in one box. That's one thing I suggest. Consolidating all of your important photos in one box, all of your insurance documents, anything that's valuable in another box. And that's your run kit. You grab those, you run out. And that is practical even when there isn't a storm. When there's a fire, you have one central source.
Get out of there.
You grab that and you go.
Because you said your dad got up here with 2 cars. It didn't take a moving truck, it was 2 cars.
That's because everything was on the curb and pretty much wiped out. So that kind of streamlined the process. But it's a new life for him. And it's going to be a new life for a lot of people. I'm not even really focused on my situation because mine is one of probably tens of hundreds of thousands of people that are going through this.
Even like as meteorologists, we track hurricanes and we see them, but here in your situation, it makes it real. And it's just horrific.
And the last storm was 1985 Hurricane Elena that I was in that same house. The seawall collapsed, but we built the seawall higher and we put a bunch of riprap in so that the seawall couldn't tip over. That was more of a rain event, but very similar to Elena was a Cat 3 that stalled for 3 days, 65 miles off of Tampa Bay. This storm was 85. Helene was 85 miles away, but it didn't stall. It just moved parallel. So very different storms, but Helene caused more damage. This Milton that we're looking at is just a beast of a storm. Now there is the potential potential where it could go from a 4 and weaken down a little bit before it makes landfall. But there's that cold front to the north, and that's the reason why the track is baked into moving to Central Florida, because it can't run into that cold front. That storm that front is steering the storm.
People keep asking, like, could it turn? Could it? No, that front's going to keep it from really turning up. It's going to come where it's going to come, and we know, and we're prepping you now. But when you look here today, I mean, we're already seeing that rain, as Mark talked about, and it's going to continue to push in for the next 2 days until we get real into Wednesday. It did look like once the storm is out of here Thursday, you still have some rain from the outer bands, and then Friday into the weekend, we need that sunshine.
Right.
But I hate to say this, with what we're going to see, drying out's nice, but we've got years of recovery.
But there's no real window to get out. If you're waiting for a dry time before the storm hits, it's really not going to happen.
There.
It's going to be this nuisance rain, which makes hurricane prep a little more difficult for you. And I think today, probably into Tuesday, really your only options, because those winds will be a little bit too much, especially in the Tampa Bay area. Prep is done first thing Tuesday. You're going to be
you're good to go. You're
evacuated,
ready and out of there.
They may even put coastal evacuations up for like some of the A evacuation zones along our beaches, because we'll have hurricane warnings likely going up here along places from St. Augustine all the way up to Duval County. None are in effect right now. That's a 36-hour window where those hurricane warnings will start to go up.
Well, we took a look, remember, Mark, at the desk with the winds, and you can't see them from here, but you can see the rain. But all these winds came through St. Mary's into Jacksonville down towards St. Augustine, which is why we do think that there's a chance they could put that evacuation zone and say, get out. But then you can go inland, like Mark said, and be safe. And I think that's important.
So these are current wind gusts, and that's not even showing Milton. That little circulation center there in the Gulf is the first week low. And it's been pretty windy there around the Tampa Bay area. This, let's see what this shows. I wonder, yes, I did back this out because hopefully it shows the winds coming through. Nope, it doesn't.
They are heavy, though. It's just our graphics are skipping over.
Yeah.
But we looked. I mean, we've been studying these wind gusts.
So this is the one that is backed out, and it shows the eye wall. So this is the Barron 3K model, and you can see that it's kind of matched up. The GFS is more further north, but that doesn't actually go out in time. Both the Euro and the Canadian are a little bit further south than the GFS at this time.
I looked at that earlier. The Euro model was projecting landfall by about 4 p.m. Wednesday. This was about an hour ago. And the GFS had midnight Thursday. So the models differ a bit, but when we really look at the data, we get a better idea model-wise on what to kind of follow. Everything's going to be different, but we can track it and kind of tell you, hey, this is what it's looking like.
So the timeline here in Jacksonville is that today, no impacts from the storm. Tuesday, no impacts from the storm. Wednesday will be the day where you're going to be getting ready for the storm. It's going to be quite windy. It's going to be wet. Wednesday night, there is the potential where some of the bridges might be shut down, more likely after midnight into Thursday morning. So Thursday, I think, will be the windiest day here in the Jacksonville area, because that storm is going to be rolling off the coast probably just around sunrise, or if not a little bit earlier than that. So Thursday morning, we'll have likely a hurricane south of us, more towards the Titusville area. That's what some of the best models are indicating. But right now, the gray area could be from Flagler down to possibly West Palm Beach, but it's more targeting that I-4 corridor.
And remember, the bridges will not close early. They'll be on the minute when those sustained winds hit 40 miles an hour. Not the gust, but the sustained winds. Yes. They'll close them right away. JSO handles that, and then they reopen them when that gust or when that sustained wind goes below 40 miles an hour.
So for those folks that live on the river, time to bring in everything around the docks. Get ready for a surge in the river that could be as much as 3 to 6 feet. Those numbers will be a little more finessed as we get closer to the storm, but that's something to consider. We will have those inland impacts. The winds will not be as strong, but you could see strong tropical storm force winds in the inland areas and hurricane force winds along the river all the way down into Putnam County. So that's going to be a real threat for inland folks, where the winds will be highest in those exposed areas. Rain amounts will be inverse from Helene, where we had higher rain amounts near Columbia County, the Swanee River Valley. It's going to be less in those locations, maybe 1 to 2 inches of rain there versus up to 7 inches of rain closer to the coastline.
And you think about that on the coast, 7 inches.
That's a lot. That's a lot over the next, between now through the next 5 days. So the bulk of that heavy rain, I would say at least 3 to 5 inches is going to be from Wednesday into Thursday.
Yeah.
All right, so I think that's going to wrap things up. We're going to be waiting for the next advisory that comes out here pretty soon. So we'll have more details to share with you on that.
And you're going to do something really cool here in a little bit. Check out the news at 5:30 because you're going to share more of your story.
Yeah, I'm going to get with Tarek Minor. We're going to talk about some of the things that I saw that were futile attempts to hold back water, some life lessons on how to tackle a situation when a bomb is dropped on you. I walked into a house that my dad didn't want to alarm me with, so I drove down thinking there would just be a little bit of mop up, maybe a little bit of wet spots here and there, a couple inches of moisture on the floor. No, there's 3 feet of water. How do you solve that problem? How do you get an elderly man on a walker who has had a stroke out of that home? And how do you mitigate and prepare for another more threatening disaster a week later? It's a lot to handle.
Thank God he's here with you now,
Yep.
but I cannot imagine what you went through, what you're going through. Emotionally and physically, I know everybody out there, including you're tired. You're tired.
Yep.
And then here we go again the second round. But know this, our team, and this goes with you going through everything you're going through, but we've got you. We want you to be safe. Mark's been through it firsthand with his dad. He was down there. We are here for you. Okay, if you need something, we're never really off when something like this is happening. We're going to continue to track this, and so stay with us.
All right, thanks for watching.
Oh well. That's good.
Yeah.
I really like that you got to share your stuff because people relate to it.
I mean, it's the side. Like I've been through a hurricane. Like 85 was pretty heavy. I mean, I remember walking on the beach as a 10-year-old, just going through, and they were all like cottages back then. There were no McMansions.
Right,
you know?
right. No $1 million
And I just remember like all the motels being wiped out. I was like, whoa, this is so cool. Like, all through the debris and stuff. And then my dad's house, that whole seawall came down. But that area has been immune from the storm. But I've never been in that destruction.
No.
The wars.
And you get there, it's like 3 feet of water. It's like, that's
It's
insane.
nuts. And then you go over the causeway, you go over to the mainland, and it's normal.
Yeah,
Completely normal.
yeah. And they're like,
Where did you grow up?
Treasure Island.
I got a buddy that lives in Reddington Beach.
So yeah.
He was like, I lost everything.
It's-
5 feet of water in his house.
So my mom, she lives in Indian Rock, so I'm driving up Gulf Boulevard, going through Madeira, going through Reddington, and those are TI is actually kind of a little bit higher.
Is it?
Yeah, it's between 6 and 8 foot. Madeira Beach is just annihilated. There was